Welcome to how to use BeeBots with young children to teach coding, critical thinking, and problem solving. This is meant to be a guide to get you started using BeeBots in your classroom. I'm so excited you are taking the time to be here. My name is Della Larson, and I've been teaching for over 34 years. I have decades of experience teaching in public schools, and I'm so passionate about sharing how robots, specifically BeeBots, have enhanced my classes. I know how valuable your time is, so all I ask is that you turn off the distractions. Turn off the background TV and turn your phone over. I know teachers are the masters of multitasking, but you deserve a few minutes doing just one thing. So give yourself the gift of no distractions. So does this sound like you? You're a teacher of young kids, maybe preschool, kindergarten, or first grade. It's possible that you have your own class or you work as a specialist and you see lots of kids. Regardless, you want to teach coding to your kids. You know how robotics can bring complex problem solving and critical thinking skills right into your class, but you're not exactly sure how to do it. When our kids are thinking deeply, we can almost see the wheels turning in their heads and they are fully engaged. We all want that, but sometimes when we are starting something different, we need a little support on how to begin and what we should be doing. If that sounds like you are in the right place. So this is what you're going to learn. Why we should be coding with kids, some easy ways to get started, and some really fun ideas to get your kids and you excited. So I have been interested in robotics ever since my son asked me to coach a first Lego League team for him and his friends about 10 years ago. I said yes. However, I knew nothing about robotics, and boy, did I get an education. It didn't take me long to see how powerful working together as a team could be. I was amazed how each team member came up with an idea and then another one built upon that idea. And before long, they had developed a crazy, exciting solution to a previously difficult problem. They developed something as a group that they could not have done individually. I wanted to figure out how to bring robotics and that kind of thinking into my school and into my class. I work in a large urban district, and my kids often come from environments filled with trauma and violence. I wanted my students to have the same kind of experiences my own children were having, so I introduced BeeBots. Here's my favorite thing about BeeBots. Once you step into a kindergarten class with a robot, most likely no one in the room has ever seen one before. Some of my kids come from homes that are functioning well. My kids have meals at tables with conversation and books at bedtime. But I also have students who witness trauma, who eat microwave food sitting alone on the couch watching TV. But each child is at the same starting point. Everyone is a beginner. Think about that for a minute. Every single student, regardless of their life, is starting at the same place. No one has more background knowledge or experience than another. No one has a head start. We all begin together. For the first time, every child gets a level playing field. Honestly, that is reason enough to bring robotics into your classroom. So I became obsessed with BeeBots, and so did my kids. I made some mistakes along the way, but I have also discovered amazing results, and I can share the good stuff with you. So let's start by using the same language. What exactly is coding? Coding is basically telling a machine what we want it to do in a language it understands. With BeeBots, that is just simple arrow keys. Straight, back, turn right, turn left. That's it. It's simple, but it can become complex coding. Next, what is an algorithm? An algorithm is basically the steps we need to take to complete a task. Most tasks require algorithms. Brushing our teeth, making a sandwich, they all require steps. And building an algorithm for a robot is no different. I use the correct vocabulary with my kids. From day one, I make sure they know this is computer science. that they are computer scientists. I wish I could see the look on my parents' faces when their little 5-year-old comes home from school and says, "I built an algorithm for my robot today." I hope that that parent starts to see their child from a slightly different lens. So what are other teachers saying about BeeBots in their classrooms? Teachers from all over are seeing themselves differently too. Teaching is hard. We have to do so much, but there is something powerful when we help each other and share our passions with each other. We can become stronger together by lifting each other up. So let me tell you a little something about myself. I've been using BeeBots in my class for about 10 years. I have created literally hundreds of mats to use with BeeBots. I've presented at tech conferences and I've been featured in the book No Fear Coding. I also have a partnership with Terrapin, the makers of BeeBot, and I work with them to share all this little robot can do. I love this quote by Steve Jobs. Everybody should learn how to program a computer because it teaches you how to think. Because so often we ask our kids to spit back information. But when we use robots and coding, the kids are creating the knowledge. When our kids code, they use critical thinking. Our admins all want us to come up with lessons that bring critical thinking into our lessons. But it's really not that easy to do when your curriculum is scripted. But when we code, we are using critical thinking. You have to hold one idea in your head while planning your next step. We can bring deep thinking to our youngest learners. We just need the tools that make that possible. Our kids learn what it means to persevere. They learn to keep trying even if they don't get the outcome they want. Debugging is built into coding and it's part of the program. I always ask my kids to remove a step, make their program longer, make it shorter, with more or less turns. I want them to look at the solution as multifaceted. I want them to realize there is no one correct way. I want them to be creative. I love when I see a child write a complex program that goes on forever. I love it when the other kids around the rug think there's going to be a bug, but the child who's writing it is just being creative. I love that sly smile they give me when they have the BeeBot pass the target, only to back up and turn around. I love when the kids try to trick us into thinking they made a mistake. This is the basis of storytelling, of sequencing events, of putting small steps together to make a bigger story. When kids take turns with each other to create an algorithm, they learn to work with a partner, to build on their strengths, and maybe to carry a friend through a weakness. That is true teamwork. Risk-taking is impossible without a little vulnerability. When we let our kids feel safe to try out ideas without the risk of failure, we are giving them a gift that will live long after they leave us. The greatest gift we can give our students is the gift of the belief that they can succeed. One of my most powerful moments teaching came a couple years ago. I was working with a class, and at the beginning of the year, I asked them what they wanted to be when they grew up. I was creating a graduation booklet, and this very first entry was meant to show how much they had improved in writing. My plan was to give the same prompt at the end of the year I was showcasing their writing. And in the fall, I got a lot of basketball players, singers, dancers, really typical stuff. But what made me see the power was at the end of the year when I asked that same question. Yes, their writing definitely improved, but the kids' answers changed dramatically. What started out as basketball player turned into computer scientist, engineer, robot developer. That, my friends, is power. And when we can shape how kids see their own future in a different way, that is pretty powerful stuff. So let's talk about how I introduce BeeBots. I love bringing this little guy into a class for the very first time. All the kids know it's some kind of toy, but they really have no idea what it actually is. I'm going to show you a quick video that shows how I use a red Solo cup during my very first lesson. that I love using BeeBots in my class. And when I start with my kindergartners, I walk in and I just kind of hold it up. And most of my kids immediately know it's some type of toy, but they're not exactly sure. And you know when you sit down with a group of kids that sometimes not everybody is paying attention. All I have to do is that. Suddenly, everyone in the group is paying attention, sitting up, not sure what's about to happen, but they definitely want to know what's coming. So the first thing I always say is, what do you notice? And most of the kids are going to say, it looks like a bee. Yes, it definitely looks like a bee. And they'll talk about the eyes, they'll talk about the black stripes. And if no one mentions the buttons, kind of turn it around and say, what else do you notice? And then somebody's going to say that they noticed that there are arrow keys. I say, yes. So this is a BeeBot, and it's called a BeeBot because it's part bee and part robot. And the kids get that pretty quickly. I want them to start to investigate the buttons because what kid have you ever met that doesn't want to press buttons? So the first thing I ask them is, what do you think is going to happen? Excuse me. What do you think is going to happen if we press this button? And everyone in the class is going to say, we think it's going to go straight. And I say, let's try it. So I always just ask somebody to come up and press the button. Nothing happened. They suddenly are very disappointed. And I kind of say, that's a head scratcher. Nothing happened. I wonder why. And eventually someone in your class is going to notice that there's a go button. So I say, let's try it again. Come on up, press the go button. And what happens? It goes straight. This is where I introduce the clear button. The clear button is the most important button that the kids learn. Because if they don't clear it, the program is going to stay the same. Now, this is when I tell the kids, my little robot here does not speak English. He does not speak Spanish. He does not speak Creole, or whatever language you might have in your class. He speaks in code, and the code is made up of arrows. He will do whatever we ask him to do as long as we speak in a language that he understands. So, let's talk to him and ask him to do some things. So generally, I just bring a cup. And I put the cup, I'm going to move it here so you can see. I put the cup here and I say, I want this BeeBot to go to the cup. And I always make sure I move it a little further than what I think it's going to go. And I have somebody come up and let's press the button and press go. Didn't quite make it. So this is an important part of computer science, which is what you all are. You're computer scientists. We have to debug. And when we debug, we look at what didn't work and we change it. So we told it to go 1 and it came to here, but we want it to touch the cup. So how many should we press it? Most of the kids will say 2. You're going to get some kids who say 37. Let's try 2. And again, pull somebody up, 2, and go. And now let's see what happens. We made it to the cup, and the kids will cheer and be so very happy. But next, what I want them to do is I want them to turn. I want them to understand the turn button. So I put the cup over here at about a 90-degree angle, and I say, let's get it to turn. How do you suppose we're going to get it to turn? And most of the kids will say, go straight. And this is when I start to bring in my algorithm. And I tell them the algorithm are the steps we need to take to complete a task. So we're going to tell it to go straight, and then we're going to tell it to turn. And you're looking at this, and we're both looking at it, so it's kind of messed up, but I'm going to want him to turn. And then we always need to remember to go. And it's just like building a sentence. Now, one of the things that I do with my kids is I tell them, just like when you start a sentence, you start with a capital letter, you start with clear. So no matter what we're doing, we always start with clear. because you know what's going to happen if they don't clear it. Then the program that they just put in will mix up with the one they're putting in, and it's a big mess. So I always kind of tell them this is like the capital letter, clear it. We're going to tell it to go straight, and they're going to tell me to tell it to turn, and we're going to go. And I have somebody come up, and I have them literally press the buttons. So the first button is clear, and then I say, turn it over. The next button is straight, and turn it over. And the next button is turn, and then turn it over. We put it back down before we hit go. Now, if you've used BeeBots, you know the BeeBot is not going to make it to the cup. But my kids don't know that yet. So I want them to learn to debug. So I have somebody come up, press go. It goes straight. It didn't make it. Pretty soon they realize that we have to add to our program. So let's go back. We're going to start with clear. We're going to go straight. We're going to turn, but the piece that we forgot was the go straight again. And that is how we debug. We take our algorithm, all the steps we need to use to get to our task, which is get the BeeBot to the cup, and we test it out. And if it doesn't work, we go back and we figure out where it went sideways, and we add a new step. Now, again, same thing. We start our sentence with clear, go straight, turn, go straight, and go. And let's see if we can get to the cup. Ta-da! It did. That is how I start my very first lesson. Because what I want them to learn in that very first lesson is that they use these buttons to tell the BeeBot what to do, and that you have to use the clear button, and that the BeeBot isn't going to work if you just tell it to turn. It's got to turn and go straight. These are critical things that I want them to know. So that is how I introduced my BeeBot the very first time. So I hope that your kids enjoy using the BeeBot as much as mine. This first lesson is all about letting them see how the BeeBot can move, learning what code, algorithm, computer scientists, and debugging mean. My next lesson involves a mat. I always start with a straight mat with content that they know. I don't want to muddy the waters with unknown content. So I have my kids choose a target card to give them a goal, and they build their algorithm and program the BeeBot to that spot. I typically start with colors. I never interfere with what they tell me. If the kids forget to hit clear, I let them forget. Remembering to clear first and erasing the last program is always learned faster if I let the kids forget and they see the consequence of what happens when they don't hit the clear. One lesson with a straight mat is usually enough for them to become independent. Again, we usually have to debug if they forget to clear. My next lesson involves programming cards. For this, I literally get down on the floor with them. I have the kids pick up and move the BeeBot one step at a time. With each move, we place a programming card. It really helps the kids break down the sequence if you let them move the BeeBot one square at a time. Then, when they are ready to program, I have them look at the card, press the correct button, and then turn that card over. And they make their way through their program. That way they don't lose place. You can write a really complex code with this technique. Once my kids are pretty good with the cards, I move to a whiteboard or a felt board to have the kids write their algorithms. They're still moving the BeeBot, but now the code is on the whiteboard instead of the rug right in front of them. Be warned, you will have someone in your class who will write the most elaborate algorithm they can. I can never really be sure if they do this to be complex or they just want to increase the length of their term. I always use the words sophisticated and complex to describe long algorithms. I'll ask the kids if they can reach their spot in less steps or more steps or add a term. They start to see that the code is like a sentence. It starts with clear. They move through the steps, and at the end, they go, just like a period at the end of the sentence. Once my kids have mastered using a large mat, I move to simplifying code. If your kids are anything like mine, they will have long lines of code. So then I start having them simplify it. I have them take 3 straight and change it to 3 and an arrow. This is a more complex lesson, and I only start to do this lesson when I am sure they have lots of experience with using programming cards. I always remove some of my straight cards. We never seem to have enough straight cards. And I say, we don't have any more straight cards. What can we do? Is there a way we could make sure we know we need to move 3 straight without actually using 3 straight cards? And with a little scaffolding, you'll have someone who comes up with a solution. We could write the number 3 and a straight, and that way we would know 3 straight equals straight, straight, straight. Some kids are so drawn to this lesson, you can essentially see into their future as mathematical geniuses. The next step is using algorithm cards to predict where the BeeBot will land. This can be a little tricky for some kids, so I recommend starting simple. Start with a mat and ask where it will land if we go straight, straight, go. The real fun begins when you add a turn. This is a huge leap for some kids, and I'm always shocked to see how some kids are just naturals at reading the code and figuring out where the BeeBot will end up. And some kids are going to need more practice. Watch a group of kids trying to figure out where the BeeBot will land is truly watching critical, complex thinking. It's on these lessons that I cannot believe I actually get paid to do this with kids. It brings me so much joy when I watch a child get it, when they understand. So let's look at this map. At first glance, your kids may say that the BeeBot will land on blue. But if you've ever used a BeeBot, you know this first code will stay on black. You need that extra straight to make it get to blue. It's in these type of lessons that my kids really push themselves. I put up the card and then I ask for lots of predictions. I use it almost like a number talk. It's basically number talk on steroids. Asking what their answer is and then what their thinking is like looking into their brains. And then we always test. The best part of BeeBots is I never have to correct an answer. We test and we learn. Then we discuss what happened and why it was or wasn't what we were predicting. Then we debug. Using a BeeBot is so much more than just moving a cute toy. But unless you have some support, it can become a struggle to figure out what you should actually be doing. So I have some tips for managing how you use BeeBots in a large group. If you work with young children, pretty much any children, you know that they have an intense feeling for fairness. So just to make sure I am fair, I put all the kids' names on popsicle sticks. I put them in a large red Solo cup, and as a stick is chosen, that child gets a turn. Once they have a turn, their name goes into a box. And I close up that box. We do not take those sticks out of the box until the cup is empty. That way, everyone gets a turn before someone gets a second turn. Because trust me, they are going to keep track. Now, I don't use turns on the BeeBot as a way to control behavior, but I do choose a lucky duck every day. Sometimes I call it the golden apple, but typically I call it the lucky duck. And you can do this easily in your room. The lucky duck is the person who is chosen based on behavior. Someone who was kind, someone who followed our class plan, someone who had a hard time, but they turned it around. If you give this award to kids who struggle but then turn it around, you'll see the true community you have built in your classroom, because when you give the lucky duck honor to a child who struggled, everyone, if you've done your job, will be so happy for that child. So when you're the lucky duck, In my room, the lucky duck gets to be the line leader, they get to open the gate at the playground, they get to choose centers first. And that person gets to choose the stick for BeeBots. Now that is the definition of power in a kindergarten class. Next, I follow the 3x3 rule. I give 3 kids a turn to program the robot, and then I offer up 3 algorithms, and I have them predict where the BeeBot will end. That way, everyone knows the structure of the lesson. I always use those popsicle sticks to keep it fair. I find the 3x3 rule keeps me at about 30 minutes, which works really well for my kids. So let's talk about mats. There are literally hundreds of mats that you can make. I usually start with a book. I have a read aloud that connects with the content in some way. So I sit them all down and read a story. In this example, we read the book Turkey Trouble. It's the story that's really popular at Thanksgiving where the turkey disguises himself in order to hide from the farmer. And you can see in this photo one of those really complicated programs. In this photo, she is moving her BeeBot to the firefighter, which could be a quick, straight program. But she built an algorithm that had the BeeBot going all over the mat. She was extremely proud of herself, as well she should be. We write the code at the bottom of the mat with the cards, and then we push the buttons. That's their favorite part. I always have them turn over the card as they press the button so they don't get confused. It gives them practice writing and then gives them practice going one by one through the program. Then the fun comes when they press go. I always ask them to scurry back to their spot on the rug so that everyone can see, and this works really well. Every year in the spring, we have a big unit on construction. So one of our mats is all the vocabulary connected to tools. I review the vocabulary with the kids first, and then the fun begins. We use mats for reading CVC words and word work. For life cycles, add a mat to supplement a unit of study. My kids love the silly penguins on this mat. It adds a little fun to the nonfiction unit we do in the winter. So now let's talk about small groups. For me, the magic number is 2. I only let 2 kids go to a BeeBot center if I'm not there. I have played around with this number, but 2 gives the maximum engagement. Once I bring that 3rd child in, someone is left out and it gets distracted, and then there's issues and I have to go over there. But if I have 2, then it works. But I like to give more kids a chance at the BeeBots. So I might have 2 or 3 mats spread out over the floor, and each mat has 2 children. I always give them programming and target cards, and sometimes they use them and sometimes they don't. And I'm fine with that. I love this quote from Albert Einstein: play is the highest form of research. And this goes with the BeeBots. I want them to discover and play on their own terms. I have about a dozen BeeBots, but I never use them all at the same time. If you are a specialist and you are doing centers with a whole group, by all means use as many as you can. But my experience is in a classroom, and BeeBots are just another option during center time. I always get asked how many BeeBots a teacher should have, and I feel like you need at least 1. Just get 1 if money is tight, but I think 6 is the perfect number. BeeBots come 2 ways, and you can get them with batteries, which is cheaper, or rechargeable. And believe it or not, I actually use the BeeBots that use batteries. My batteries last forever, and I find the rechargeable runs out all the time. If you purchase a class set that comes in a rechargeable case, then that's one thing. Then get the rechargeables. But if you don't have a rechargeable case, get the batteries. I can't tell you how many times those rechargeables have died on me in the middle of a lesson. And remember, donors choose. BeeBots are a perfect grant for donors choose. And I actually have a little way to walk you through creating a donors choose grant for BeeBots. Reach out to me and I'll send you the link. But now let's have a little fun. When I started using BeeBots, I just used them with mats, but I've had more experience and I've changed it and I've added new ideas. This is a new activity I just started last year. I added clue cards. So the clue cards have QR codes on them, and if you scan the QR code, you can hear the clue. It adds a little bit more fun to an activity, and this one is for animals, but it would be perfect for math facts. You could have the clue say, go to the sum of 4 plus 2. How awesome is that? Listen to how this works.
Go to the animal that says moo.
So the kids are using the iPads to scan those QR codes, and that's what they get. My kids are loving this. Here's an idea that you can use very easily in your classroom. All you have to do is tape a magnet on the BeeBot. I use a magnet wand, and then take paper clips, or I like to use pipe cleaners, cut up pipe cleaners, or use small discs, and have the BeeBot go around and see how many it can pick up. Make it even more challenging by giving a limit on moves. My kids love doing this. It's a great way to bring a little comparing data into BeeBots. Watch how it works. You can keep track of how many clips or paper pipe cleaners each person picks up and compare the numbers. My boss loves this activity, and it's perfect if you have an observation coming up. Last May, one of my students came up with this idea. We were having field day, and she said, we should have a BeeBot field day. And of course we should. How could that have been missing? How did I not know that? So we made an obstacle course out of sentence strips, blocks, and cups, and the BeeBot had a field day. Did you know that BeeBots can draw? Strap a marker on the BeeBot and challenge the kids to make straight lines or that are so many inches long, or try a circle. My kids love this activity and ask for it constantly. Here's a tip though. Use thicker markers. I find they're more forgiving when making marks, and make sure you tape the marker at an angle. It works better that way. If you can get a bunch of different BeeBots all with different colored markers, you can make BeeBot art and put it up on your wall. So I live in the Northeast, and even though we didn't have a lot of snow this past year, my kids still had a lot of fun making a snowplow. I put cotton balls on a mat and challenged the kids to build an attachment that will push the snow across the line. Now you can make it a little trickier by having to push the snow so that it has to turn. They're going to have to make adaptations to their design, because as soon as they go make that turn, chances are the snow is not going to stay in the plow. So they have to redesign. One of the very best days of teaching this year came during this lesson. I had a student who created a program that was so sophisticated that I actually called my son at college to tell him. The child was trying to move the snow without changing his design, and he built the most complex code that involved going backwards, retracing his steps, turning, and he ultimately got all the snow across the line. And the cheers from the other kids were heard 2 doors down. It's days like that that I can't believe how lucky I am that I get paid to do this. Now, if you really want a design challenge, add Legos. Legos make almost everything more fun. So have the kids build a cage to hold the BeeBot so it can move all kinds of things. For this, I usually get my 5th grade buddies to help. Again, I challenge them to move an object and turn corners. You can make it harder by changing the object they need to push. In this picture, you can see they're moving a spider ring into, you can't see it, but there was a spider web. Finally, this is a favorite. Make a dance party. Here's an example of a really creative dance. Now, I wish I could take credit for this, but this isn't mine. But you have never seen a chicken dance like this. How fun is that? What kid would not be so thrilled to be part of a chicken dance? So most things have to start with yes. All you need is a willingness to try something new and see what happens. It is truly a privilege to watch kids see themselves in a new light, to see their future through a new lens. It's an honor to be able to give them that gift. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I don't have time. I can't bring a single extra thing into my day. And I get it. I totally do. Every time we have a CPT meeting, that's what we call our common planning time, I walk out feeling stressed with the long list of to-dos that I have to do in front of me. So I totally get that you feel overwhelmed with how much needs to get done, especially this year. But I want you to think differently. BeeBots are not another thing you need to do. It's another tool you can use. It's not different than a pencil or a crayon or a way. It's a way for your kids to explore all the subjects you are teaching already. It's just done in a really fun way. So I want you to write this down. BeeBots are not another thing I need to teach. It's another tool I have to teach what I'm already doing. You can add maths to connect to literacy, to a story, to nonfiction, to math with addition, subtraction, shapes. You can use sight words. You can use phonics. You can use word work. You name it. You can enrich it with BeeBots. So when you think about it, you came and listened today because you wanted to get some ideas on how to incorporate BeeBots into your class. You know your administration wants to see you using more tech and wants to see critical thinking and complex problem solving in your class. As our kids grow, the need for soft skills grow. They need to be creative. They need to collaborate. They need to build off their partner's idea. These soft skills can't be taught in traditional ways. We need to offer our kids a place where they can develop the skills they need, that they will need to grow and flourish in the future. And as teachers, we need to have a little fun. After all, our jobs are hard. They are filled with the pressures and stress of benchmarks and testing. Trust me, there is nothing better than having fun with your kids while they are happy and joyful in learning. And it will honestly remind you why you went into teaching in the first place. So the obvious question is, how do I get this up and running in my classroom? The way I see it is you have two options. The do-it-yourself option, which can be pretty time-consuming. You can spend your weekends and nights searching Pinterest and the web for ideas that you can cobble together. Or the easy way, the done-for-you way. Personally, I like a simple way, one place to get everything I need. So I'd like to introduce you to Coding with Kids. This has been a dream of mine for years. I travel the country talking to teachers who are passionate about bringing coding into their classroom, but they get stuck because there is no one clear path, no one place to get everything that they need. So that is what Coding with Kids is. Coding with Kids is the absolute fastest way to get big results in your classroom. But it's not just about the kids. It's the support and resources that you need so you can do all the things you need to do every single day. So Coding with Kids is a membership, sort of like a club. Every month you get 3 new maths with the matching target cards. If you look closely, you can see those clue cards down on the farm. All of it is already done for you. You also get a little bonus content. Don't you love a surprise? Each month there may be a surprise for you. This month it's those color dudes. so that you can get started with your colors. You'll also get another bonus this month, which is that Donors Choose grant that I was talking about. You'll also receive algorithm cards, vocabulary posters, and programming cards. You'll also get access to a virtual teacher's room, a place where you'll also get access to a virtual teacher's room within a private Facebook group, a place where you can ask questions, share ideas, and be with like-minded teachers. The best part are the video modules. You can access them anytime. You can binge watch or take your time. If you ever get stuck about what you should do, the modules will help you actually see how you can use BeeBots in your classroom. But what you'll create is a classroom filled with engaged students that see themselves as problem solvers, as engineers, as scientists. A class that engages all children regardless of their learning ability or language. Okay, so what does it cost? It's just $9.99 a month, or you can get 2 free months with the yearly price. Coding with Kids is offering an early bird pricing. Now the price is going to go up, but if you buy now, you're going to lock into the low monthly fee, and your price will not increase ever as long as you are a member. So let's review what you get. The mats alone will more than make up the price of each month, but you also get programming cards, algorithm cards, clue cards, vocabulary posters, and all those training modules, not to mention the access to the teacher's room. Don't worry if you have some of my mats. These are all new, never been seen before mats. They won't be available to the public until after they have been released inside the club. So what do you need to do? Go to Coding with Kids and decide if you want the monthly or yearly subscription. Then you simply click checkout in the secure order form, and you're going to create your own username and password. And that's it. You're in. You can access your resources immediately. Next, you'll just need to join us in the private Facebook group and let's chat. Tell me where you're from, what grade you teach, and how long you've been teaching. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope you are inspired to dust off your BeeBot and get busy coding with your kids. So I hope you'll follow the link and join today. Here's the link one last time. Copy it down. Make sure you use lowercase. And again, thank you for everything that you do with your children.